My name is Zara Nanu. I'm CEO and co-founder of Gapsquare. And it pretty much says on the tin what we do. We do people analytics for inclusive employers. We've set up Gapsquare about 5 years ago when the World Economic Forum actually was saying it will be 217 years for the gender pay gap to close globally. At the same time, they were saying that by 2030, we'll be in self-driving cars. And by 2030, we'll be nicely waving people off to Mars. But at the same time, while we're doing that, out of the comfort of our self-driving cars and using technology to work and to build relationships with people, we still somehow, the World Economic Forum thought, 200 years away from achieving pay parity. So what we wanted to do is develop solutions and use technology to help advance equality in this space and ensure that when we're there waving people off to Mars, we actually live in a world of pay equity. So we work with a lot of customers. We work with customers like Accenture, IDC, London Met Police, London Mayor's Office, around looking at creating fair pay analytics and building more inclusivity and diversity within the workforce. So we're a team of quite fun-loving individuals based out of Bristol, usually out of Engine Shed, currently actually all over the UK, based out of our offices or living rooms or bedrooms. And we do things around fair reward and compensation, looking at how reward and compensation reflects more fairness for employees. We look into how employers can build more resilience in talent and use tools and techniques from diversity and inclusion to build that resilience. And we've seen over the past 6 months how important that resilience is. And we help organizations overall build more inclusivity and diversity within their structures so that they can be a more fair employer of the 21st century. What we're going to do now is a little exercise and a little experiment doing it online. I usually do this in person, and I can see if people are cheating, whereas now most of the people have their cameras off. So I won't know if I trust you guys. I trust everyone that you're going to play by the rules. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out 12 words, and at the end of it, it's like a jugging up the memory exercise. At the end of it, we're going to try and remember which words I have said. Does that work? All right. So I'm gonna read out the 12 words. Please do not write the words down as I say them. The whole point of the exercise is that it's kind of looking into how our memory works. Yeah. All right. So here goes the word. Here go the words: pillow, nap, doze, rest, siesta, drowse, catnap, snooze, slumber, kip, mattress, pyjama, dream. So these are the words. Now, if you can take a minute, write down as many as you can, doesn't matter what order. Write them down on a piece of paper, on your wherever is comfortable.
That's tricky, Zara.
Come on, a few more. You can do it. A few more seconds. How's that memory going? All right, so I think we stop writing the words here. I mean, ideally, we could maybe see people put their thumbs up in camera, but if you still want to keep your camera off, then maybe you can use the reactions button at the bottom and just give a thumbs up for whenever you got one of the words that I have said. Is that all right? Yeah? Okay, so who got the word rest? Yeah, a few people got the word rest. Not that many. Catnap. Yeah, nice. Good. Yeah, quite a few. Quite a few got that. Who got slumber? Yeah. Oh, that was a popular word. Snooze? Yeah. Pajama? It's good. We're making our way through these words. Who got the word sleep? Yeah, quite a few people got the word sleep. The word sleep was not on the list. But what this exercise goes to highlight is how our brain works by ways of association, and it associates certain words with certain activities. So I read a few words that are all associated with sleep. I never said the word sleep, but in our minds we thought sleep. And as this workshop session is related to recruitment, this oftentimes plays into recruitment world too, insofar as we associate certain people's qualities with certain traits and certain roles that they would be fit for. And this is how we end up bias in recruitment, and we end up having people of kind of a similar characteristics ending up doing similar kind of roles, and people in other characteristics doing other kind of roles. We have seen through our data at Gapsquare multiple times how this plays out in occupational segregation, and how we oftentimes have more men clustered in senior roles because the words that they reflect through their CVs and through their LinkedIn profile are kind of highlighting of experiences into that space. And we see more women in support roles and occupations that pay less within an organization, with a language within their CV and within LinkedIn that is different. So the point of the exercise was to highlight how, without even sometimes thinking about it, we are biased in how we think about people and where they come into the organization. And that's how oftentimes we end up with recruiting certain candidates into certain roles. And we end up with a more homogenous senior leadership team of the organization, and a different kind of homogenous entry level roles and support roles within the organization. What we have also had, can everyone see my screen again? Hopefully. What we have also had over the past few months is obviously the disruption of COVID in this space. What we're seeing in working with a lot of organizations, and the work that we do overall with looking at helping employers become more fair and more fit for the 21st century, we still see mass redundancies. And I think it's starting to sink in that some of these jobs are not coming back. We still have research that is showing that 65% of the jobs of the future have not been created yet or invented yet. And that's the jobs of the young people who are coming out of schools and universities right now. And we see that skills are paramount, but what skills to focus on is still a big question. We've all seen kind of the chancellor in the past few weeks talk about reskilling in light of the new economy, and urging people to identify what skills they're best fit for, to reskill. We've all seen the ad with the ballet dancer Fatima, who was meant to be reskilling into cybersecurity. And it all coincided with, the same week, the government has launched a national skills assessment portal where you can go and kind of answer some questions, and then the portal tells you what kind of skills and what kind of roles you are best to look at. So what I did, I did this exercise. I went on the website. I seriously encourage everyone to do the same. I've answered a set of maybe about 20 questions. And so the idea is that if all else fails at leading Gapsquare, I can always requalify as a construction worker, plumber, paint sprayer, or pipe fitter even, because that's what the skills service has identified as a top job for me, which is really interesting, and I think is highlighting how the whole conversation around where we are with jobs now and what COVID has done to jobs now versus where the jobs are going in the future has a huge gap in the middle. And I think this is a unique opportunity for people in recruitment, for HR managers, for inclusive leaders to rethink and reshift how we do a lot of work in this space. But ultimately, I'd like to encourage everyone to try the National Skills Assessment website and see what they being urged to requalify into, I'd love to hear from you afterwards. Get in touch on LinkedIn or email to let me know what kind of jobs the website is encouraging you to do. So in light of this, in light of kind of us knowing that bias is creating by our subconscious, unconscious bias, sometimes conscious bias is creating a lot of gaps in recruitment and a lot of gaps within companies' career progression and how they structure their organization and their workforce. And then the impact of COVID, we've seen how important resilience has become for businesses. So I'd like to share with you a very practical thing that we have done, and that is we've put together a dashboard. It's available for free, dashboard.gapsquare.com, where you can see a lot of insights come together in the space of recruitment, in the space of building resilience. So what we have is we bring together data from the Office for National Statistics, from McKinsey, from Korn and Ferry, from all the leading providers of research in this space. And then we have organized data to reflect things around how organizations and HR department are utilizing financial supports, how they're evaluating redundancy handling, how they support remote working and what's happening in terms of flexible working and remote work, returning to the workplace, technological business changes that are becoming very important as a lot of companies are turning to digitization in order to review how they manage their workforce, how they recruit their workforce, how onboarding takes place, and how the overall employee experience moves from that physical space and that we got used to into a space that we kind of blend the physical experience with the virtual experience. And then also adapting organizational operations and how companies are going about that. So the dashboard is updated on a regular basis. And like I said, it brings data from ONS and McKinsey and Mercer and leading providers in this space. And we've structured the data into kind of three areas that I'd love to encourage you to explore afterwards. One area is reaction. How have businesses reacted and how are they currently reacting to the impact of COVID? How they're managing risks. So for instance, in this space, if we're looking at adapting organizational operations in terms of risks, we're looking at when kind of skill gaps are expected to occur within companies and when they think the skill gaps will happen. And then with some key insights from different reports about companies that are doing skilling, reskilling, upskilling of their workforce. And skilling has been a really interesting one for us because if you look at resilience, there's also, if the thing around resilience is that research shows from McKinsey that companies who are identified as unprepared to address the disruption due to market or technological changes of COVID were companies who have no previous attempt at reskilling their workforce. So you have 47% of respondents, no previous attempt at reskilling, or 30% unsuccessful previous reskilling programs, which is overall highlighting a picture that skilling and reskilling is really key to building resilience within your workforce. We've lived for the past 6-7 months through the biggest social experiment on the future of work. And one of the key things that we've seen is that companies need to have an agile workforce, a workforce that can adapt with them, that can change, that can transform both them itself and the stakeholders and the shareholders. What we've also seen in working with hundreds of companies around issues of diversity and inclusion is that companies who have been really focused on the agenda of diversity and inclusion have been able to further easier through this crisis. They have learned how to disrupt themselves before this major disruption came along. They have learned how to cope with unexpected change, with friction. So this, although it wasn't easy, was more manageable for organizations that were using kind of diversity and inclusion as a mechanism and as a way to reinvent themselves more fit for a 21st century employer. So I'd like to encourage you to explore this dashboard. And another thing that we have developed that I'd really like to encourage you to do, it's a free employers workforce management and crisis score. So if by completing a survey on our website, you get a score in terms of how fair you as an employer has been in managing the organization and managing your workforce through this crisis, and then you can identify kind of where to go from here. Because we hear from all of the bigger employers, and it's an interesting time because this week the World Economic Forum is running a global jobs reset summit, and the whole conversation in the jobs reset summit is evolving around how we reinvent jobs fit for the 21st century and for the future of work. And fairness, diversity, and inclusion really comes at the core and at the heart of the change and the shift that's happening.